Welcome to the Rotowire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is the Friday morning edition, two starters for next week. Clay Link here with Todd Zola of Rotowire and Masters Ball. Good to be talking with you, Todd. I am a Kia man now. I am driving a Kia Optima, so that's pretty exciting stuff in my life. That's about all that's going on in my world. What's new with you on this Friday morning?
Well, I'm just the opposite. My car's in the shop probably through Monday. So yeah, if I will not, as I mentioned, I will try not to let my my mood bleed into the podcast, if you will. So talking some baseball should get my mind off of the impending bailing of my car out of the shop on Monday. That tells you right there that it's I'm not going to have it done till Monday. But it's fine. It's good. You know that I know I'll be, good on the road to go for a little while longer. So all good though. Yeah, well, it's what it is. A lot of good baseball this week. Busy weekend. Hopefully the weather will begin to cooperate. We've both been a little bit, it's subject to change, right? All week long whenever we make updates. So hopefully the weather will start to cooperate.
Yeah, man. It's been one delay, rain out after another, and trying to make the most of it, but a lot of 7-inning games lately, seems like, and just got to navigate things. It's yesterday was a bad day fantasy-wise for me. I, in one league, realized, I'm starting faulty in Coors. That's never a great realization when that settles in. And that was Stake League, and I must have last week when I set my lineup, must have thought he was facing somebody else. Either way, that hurt. And then I realized in Todd head-to-head, I'd left you Darvish on my bench.
Because you get to do half-week moves, right?
Yeah, for pitchers, too. And a similar thing where I just must have misjudged the matchup. Thought he was starting today instead of yesterday. So, this game is humbling, and that's another one where you get kicked down a little bit. But
in both instances, there have been so many changes this week. It very well may have been that you initially had it how you thought it would be, and there were just a million changes. It was a very fun week as well.
That happened to me last week too, or a couple weeks ago. Tyler Anderson, me and James starting against Atlanta. We're like, how did we start him in this matchup? Then he got rocked, of course.
And I know people are saying it wouldn't be this way if it were daily moves, but there are other repercussions of daily moves leagues that I find more detrimental than once in a while missing out or not having a scheduled start go your way. But that's a story for another day.
One thing I did want to ask you about, MLB now trying to flex again and say they're going to crack down on these foreign substances.
Ooh.
Yet another instance of this. We saw, who was the old long time most Major League games umpired in history?
Joe West.
Yeah, the cowboy, right? Whatever his nickname is, but he's not the star of the game, but he kind of stuck his nose into this situation, kind of reignited the whole thing. And now Garrett Cole comes out and has a little bit of a hiccup. So I know some people on Twitter kind of tying those two together. You reading anything at all into this from MLB right now?
Well, first, I think this is coming out regardless whether Joe West confiscated Giovanni Gallardo's hat. They've been pulling balls, so I think this was coming regardless. I think it just got it into the news. So I think the same announcement would have come regardless. It's not a sure thing that Cole backed off whatever he was doing. You can't say it unequivocally, but you have to at least question it. I don't think we can do anything. I don't think, I'm not going to change any Cole projection just yet, but sure. The time, there's people, some people don't believe in coincidence. There's a cause and effect. So overall, like to find, I am a little bit, I don't want to use the word concerned because whatever happens, but I am curious as to what MLB is going to do. If the spin rates, if everybody's doing it, what pitchers benefit more, what pitchers benefit less? Does it lower the top and increase the bottom so that the pitchers are more compact? From a selfish point of view, I think this would it would make drafting more to my liking. That's kind of a weird, selfish way to say something, but to me, I'll be honest, and I haven't been in the main event for other reasons the past couple of years, but the way pitching was being drafted, it made it less fun for me because people were drafting pitching because they felt they had to, not because they felt the pitcher was worthy of that spot. And to me, it made for it wasn't a fun of a draft. If the top end pitching comes down a bit, maybe the delta between the elite and the rest of the field makes it so people don't feel compelled to draft pitching so early. And maybe it's just more of a you draft a player when you think he's worthy of that spot sort of thing. Sounds like sour grapes are not doing well, but that's, I don't think it is. But anyway, yeah. And then, I think this is different than when MLB said they'll crack down on box and then they called box for 2 weeks and they stopped calling box. This is something, I think it's a different scenario. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on.
Yeah,
on all that
and boy, did you ever! And that's the end of the podcast.
Well, I appreciate you laying that out because it is an interesting topic. I don't know what to make of it. Just have to wait and see. But after the initial Trevor Bauer, confiscated baseballs thing, I personally didn't think anything was coming of it. But maybe something was before this whole Joe West thing, and I just don't know what to. We'll just have to wait and see. Nothing actionable right now, but I wanted to at least bring it up. This podcast, by the way, is sponsored by WinBet. I've been terrible about remembering to mention that at the very top, but I'll try to be better about that. A couple other things I just want to mention. Ke'Bryan Hayes is back. That's good to see. Fernando Tatis returned to the lineup. Madison Bumgarner on the IL. It sounds like that had kind of been bothering him for a little while. Kyle Lewis looking at a long-term absence. Sorry to cut you off.
I was just agreeing. We're good.
Yeah, and then Colton Wong, oblique issue, but he's considered day-to-day. So when I first heard that, of course, oblique, I'm thinking, Colton Wong was kind of carrying one of my teams.
Right.
Offense kind of hard to find right now. But the fact that he's just day-to-day for now, that's kind of encouraging. Over in the Rotowire Stake League, pretty quiet week. I actually didn't make any pickups. I had one bid in for Fire Eyes and then Cole Sulser, who you mentioned on our MLB show last week. Then he ended up getting a save and I had just a $0 ad, but he got a $1 ad from Aaron Quinn. And so behind JP Fire Eisen and Taylor Tremell, Patrick Wisdom, who's been pretty hot.
Yeah.
Not a lot out there on the wire this week.
No, there isn't. And actually, what I know, it was last Sunday, and I know you guys are on the kind of stagger the picks. So if last Sunday was a little bit light in only leagues and deep leagues, I would expect this to be as well. And we're in kind of a lull between pickup call-ups. I think we're waiting. Teams are waiting another week or maybe two until we pass the next deadline, if you will. And then I think we'll see some more minor leaguers called up.
Patrick Wisdom. Any real reason to think about him? I thought, going after him would just be chasing stats that are banked and you're not going to get him. So
not in the mixed league. In an only league he's playing, right? In an only league he's playing. So I think, I think he's got 3 homers in the past week. And I have him in one of my, I don't remember it's Tout Wars, but I did grab him in a league where I was desperate for people breathing. But I'm not interested long-term. And I don't even know about short-term in a mixed league, but hard to say after you've got 3 homers, but yeah, even in the stake league, if he's playing. So if you have a hole, sure, but obviously you're stringing him with some other players, and whatever you happen to get. Yeah,
this is a 16 teams mixed league, so I guess plus with 2 util spots and only 1 catcher. So
right,
Patrick Wisdom, I get it. I think in standard mixed, he's a guy you leave out there, but
sure.
In a league like this, it kind of made sense. Taylor Tremell had a homer in his return, was swinging a hot bat. I got to say, yesterday mentioned the flub with Yu Darvish in my lineup and starting Folty in Coors. This being a humbling game, and Taylor Tremell had me thinking about Jared Kelenic, and that's another one where it's pretty humbling because I'm done thinking a guy's ready to just hit the ground running. This game is too hard for that, and the Ronald Acuñas of the world, they're the exception, the rare exception, and even a guy like Vlad couldn't hit the ground running. So,
well, look at Alex Manoah.
Alec Manoah, he had a little stumble.
I'm sorry, Alec. And then you're talking about all these batters.
Flanagan too.
Yeah. Now I'm dealing with a bunch of local Red Sox fans who recently found out that I do this for a living and are clamoring for Jaren Durant. And I'm trying to say, let the kid play with the Olympics. You know, he's a good prospect. He's not even in the same level as some of these other guys that you just talked about. Not that, you know, this level, who's to say what they'll turn out to be. But, you know, it's not as if he's going to come out and hit the ground running. So let's you know, he's got the honor to play for the Olympics with his teammate Jeter Downs and Sean, I was going to say Sean Kemp and Matt Kemp and some other veterans. Let's let the kid do that before we call him up.
Yeah, he might be the best. Well, I guess Casas is on that team too, isn't he? Some of those young kids may end up carrying the squad. So I kind of interested in watching some of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think I maybe got spoiled a little bit by Acuna and Chris Bryant before that. He won Rookie of the Year, and it's just so hard to come up and be great right away.
You remember, you know, this up 10. You remember the one, and all it takes is one to make you believe that it can happen to your guy too. You know, so.
Kelnick's really struggled, and I feel like, you know, he could be one of the best hitters in baseball over the next month, but it's just the fastball outside I was reading is kind of eating him up right now. He's just having a hard time laying off that. 415 OPS. I think when they brought him up, you know, they delayed it so long where it was one of those, like, you know, you're up for good type of things, but definitely one of those where, you know, that grievance that I thought may be coming, probably not with Jared Kelnick. Anything else on your mind, Todd, before we get into the starters for next week?
I happen to watch the Red Sox play the Astros this week, and Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, and why am I forgetting the third one?
Urquidy, Garcia, and
Framber Valdez.
Oh yeah, they got Framber back now.
For those who want to keep yelling and hating on the Astros, they're good. Those guys are, and that's not even including Christian Javier.
Yeah, or Zach Greinke, but the young aces.
Yeah, I just and given you know, having maybe the Red Sox bats got a little bit cold. Those are you know. Good luck to the Astros. I'm saying, you know, not only good luck to the. I mean, they did a good job. Those that's an interesting young staff. You didn't mention you going through injuries. The one that I'm a little bit concerned about too. Talking about good young staff. Eliezer Hernandez left the mound early last night. So
finally they got him back. He was short return.
Not an arm injury, but you know, that wasn't a good thing. So hopefully it turns out to be short term for Hernandez as well.
Yeah, that's a good one to point out. And yeah, the Astros, those three young guys, and Valdez, we thought, you know, at the start of the year, he may be in danger of missing the entire season. Now he's back fanning double digits. And I had a guy who I work with here, Ken Kreitz, asked me the other day, I think he was looking to make a trade just yesterday, was asking me whether, you know, I'd rather have rest of season Framber Valdez or Chris Bassett, who's been great. And I struggled a little bit. And I was looking at my ranks and ended up slotting them like back to back. And I said Bassett by an eyelash, but it's that one was tough for me to answer.
I think that is Bassett safer, Valdez the upside. So it kind of depends. It's sometimes those feel like a cop-out answer, but I think they're actually the way you need to look at it. I actually, you know, in area labor we're together. I traded Valdez before he got the start, heads up for Mitch Moreland, to our friend and colleague Larry Schechter, who is leading again and may have to change the title of that book once again, winning fantasy. Well, not the title, but the number of leagues he's won is the kicker underneath it. But yeah, I needed batting. I needed bats in a big way, and it may look at the Valdez for Moreland may come out like a terrible deal for me, but I needed bats, and Valdez hadn't pitched yet. And, you know, there's still a chance. I mean, he came back quickly, but who's to say if he lasts all season? So I jumped on that maybe a mistake. We'll find out.
Moreland had a homer for you this week, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I mean, Moreland's fine. I mean,
he's fine, but yeah, I mean, Valdez is like a potential ace. Yeah,
right. It's also a matter of what one can get.
Yeah.
At this time of the season, and what people would be willing to deal. So anyway,
especially from offense, like I couldn't imagine dealing from offense. I just picked up last week in labor. I picked up Phil Gonslin and Owen Miller. Like, it's just brutal.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Yeah, and this was, to me, the weird expression in this instance, but it was kind of found money for Valdez. I drafted him in labor. We have those quirky rules where it's pseudo old school, where you can't freely move from reserve to active. There has to be a natural opening. And having Valdez on the IL to begin the year gave me that natural opening. So I was able to stream pitchers in. Two of them, get this, that I was going to stream were Danny Duffy and Martin Perez, who have been in my lineup. Well, Duffy's hurt, but it turns out they've been in my lineup the whole time. So part of it too was if I activate Valdez, I'd have to drop somebody, and I had a reliever I could drop or something like that. But it just worked out that. So anyway, enough about my bad trade with Larry.
Well, Larry doesn't need any help. But,
yeah, I know.
I'm kidding. He's a good player. I thought Ian was leading, but either way,
he might be.
Just seeing.
He might be.
There's a story. It looks like just breaking this morning, or it was just published this morning by Sports Illustrated about this whole sticky ball situation. So the article is titled "The New Steroids," and the quote to kick off the article is, "This should be the biggest scandal in sports." Looks like Stephanie Apstein. So it looks like this is blowing up potentially. And one pitcher's fingers were flagged at airport security. One ball was so sticky players could pick it up with their palm. Another had visible fingerprints. So this is we'll see about this Sports Illustrated article, but it seems like this may be something that reignites it yet again, like just makes it even bigger. This Sports Illustrated article.
I understand why they want to use the word scandal, but I think that's a bit of hyperbole in this instance. But anyway, so I mean, everybody. Is it a scandal that everybody drives 10 miles over the speed limit? It's allowed, so it's not a scandal. And then if all of a sudden they decide to crack down and you can only go 5 miles over the speed limit, I don't know that I'd call that a scandal. But anyway, that's kind of what's going on here. In a weird sort of way, is it's accepted, everybody does it, and now they want to make it unaccepted.
Maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing to sacrifice or just make the pitchers dial it back a little bit, because I saw a batted ball off a minor leaguer's head last night, which I did not want to see, but I saw it on Twitter, and I never want to see that again. So I do worry a little bit about that.
They actually called the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. It was horrific. It was
in the 8th inning. But what was it? I had one more thought about this whole. It'll probably come to me as we're going through the pitch. Oh yeah, the thought, the narrative is, and I've heard people on MLB Network and former players say we don't mind it because we don't want to get hit, and then I'll also hear people that are against the whole thing saying that's not true. So I think there's something to the fact that batters are okay with it because they don't want to get hit, but I also think that's a bit of a smoke screen, and they know their own pitchers do it too. So the reason they're okay with it is because they know their own pitchers do it. And I think just saying, well, I don't mind it because I'm that way, I don't get hit as much, is just kind of a rationalization, if you will.
Yeah, I hear you. Now we'll get into the 2-start starters for next week, the week of June 7th, 2021. And if you're unfamiliar, we go through and grade all of next week's 2-start options on a 0 to 5 scale. General rule of thumb is if we have 5 leagues, how many are we starting?
Because I think we changed that a little bit.
Well, you did, and that's fine. Your system is great.
Yeah, someone called this out, or not called this out, but thought it was confusing. I don't know. I don't know. Did you actually do it? You kind of just graded them in general. You never really didn't use the league necessarily, right? I mean,
very inexact science on my
right. I mean, basically, if there's 100 pitchers, I think we're both at this point kind of going, if you're in the 0 to 20 range, they're a 1. If they're 20 to 40 range, they're a 2, etc. 98 to 100, 80 to 100 is a 1, and then over 100 is 0. I think that's a better way to look at it than the leagues at this point.
Yeah, mine is very much
right.
Just a guess.
Yeah, you kind of rank them against each other.
Into it, but yeah, I kind of rank them against each other, and 3 is very much like the
right,
the middle range as you'd expect. So yeah, we'll go through, and of course these kind of correlate, at least on Todd's end, with his weekly pitcher rankings. Definitely be sure to check those out at rotowire.com, rotowire.com/pod for a 10-day trial. And those will be updated closer to the start of next week. But Todd, you mentioned as we were getting started, not a great week for 2-start options, as you'd kind of expect since we just had a pretty healthy one. But Arizona to start nobody since they only have 5 games. And then Atlanta, Drew Smyly, it's been ugly for him. And at Philadelphia, good hitters park. At Miami's nice, but I think I'm going to give Drew Smyly, I'm going to give him a 2 just because I think maybe there's one. I'd say when I give a 1, I kind of think AL or NL only. 2, I'm thinking maybe there's one situation in the mixed league where I'd start him.
Yeah. So I'm looking at my rankings now. He's 81, which means he's at exactly that cusp, that 2-1 cusp. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with the 2. He's kind of frustrating in that he's Drew Smyly. He actually looked pretty good early in the season, but didn't happen, didn't maintain. So I'm going to go 2 as well. At Miami is too hard to, you cross your fingers with Philly, and you hope that maybe Bryce Harper doesn't get you that game, lefty on lefty, and then you take care of Miami.
So Baltimore, they also only have 5 games next week, so no 2-start starters for them. Boston, though, has 7 games. And Nick Pivetta, the win machine, finally got his first L on Wednesday, but started 6-0, and I actually had sat him here because I was just a little worried about this matchup, but he struck out 9. It was a success, and he's certainly not in that must-start tier yet, but I think versus Miami versus Toronto, I think that's a solid 3, maybe even a 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 4. I'm searching for something on Twitter now. I try to get it. There is a young lady that does videos, Scouting Girl Report. I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, Andrea. Something.
Yeah, Andrea. Yeah. She did a video with Nick Pivetta, and I will get her Twitter address while we're talking. Did a very interesting video on Nick Pivetta and how he's changed his curveball. This isn't so much anything other than to bring attention to someone out there doing some really cool work, and Andrea. So I'll get her Twitter handle while we're talking. But
yeah, she's doing a lot of cool work. And, she definitely deserves a shout out.
Oh, it's outstanding. The work that she does, the things that she explains, she knows what she's doing. Anyway, I'm going to go 4 for Vetta while I continue to search for her address.
Sure. Yeah, I got you down for a 4. I guess I'm just bracing for some regression with him, and maybe the blow will be pretty soft, but I just feel like it can't get any better. I guess maybe I'm just, since I have a lot of Pivetta, I'm just kind of bracing, but I'll keep him as a 3. What about Martin Perez?
I'll be on Perez. I'm going to throw. I'll be honest, as far as the grade goes, there's just not a lot of 2 starts this week, so it's relative to the field. And when there's not a lot of other good 2 starters, that may be a 3 in this particular week. It would have been a 2 or a 3, probably a 3. So it's also relative. What I look at is how the pitcher ranks that particular, how much he helps or hurts you this particular week, or in this case next week. So that's why I think might be a little bit ahead.
Perez, he does not have that Miami matchup because it looks like that's a wraparound series. So Martin Perez is versus Houston versus Toronto. I'm going to give him a 2, I think.
We're going to 2. All right. So before we get too far, forget about it. Andrea is it at Scout Girl Report. One word. Well, Twitter handle has to be one word. Scout Girl Report. She puts up these periodic videos explaining some next level stuff in a clear and concise, and I'll say accurate manner.
Yeah, definitely deserves a shout out. Andrea's doing great work. But moving on for next week's starters with the Cubs, Albert Alzolay. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to pronounce this name. Baseball Reference is great. They're missing him though, and so I got to figure that out. For some reason, I have in my head that it's Alzolay, but we'll see. Or no, Alzolay is how I had it. I was led to believe it was, but we'll see.
It's not Al Zola E.
Yeah, it does have Zola tucked in there.
There you go.
At San Diego versus St. Louis, he looks to be like a burgeoning number 2 starter, perhaps. Certainly a solid mid-rotation arm.
Yeah, I have him at a 4 this week, and he has the contrast of velocity and strikeouts amidst the Kyle Davies and Kyle Hendricks and Jake Arrieta's. So he's a nice. Usually, you got like 3 fireballers and then the off-speed guy in between them. The Cubs have the opposite, and he seems to benefit.
Now, Sonny Gray, his final start of May, I thought he looked really as best as he had and as good as he had dating back to last year. But then he had a little bit of a letdown at home against the Phillies, 3 earned runs, a couple homers allowed. Did strike out 8 in that outing, so he's got a 13-2 K to walk over his last 2 outings. Seems mostly fine. I do worry about, the back occasionally creeping up versus Milwaukee versus Colorado next week. For some reason, something's holding me back from a 5. But okay.
No, I'm sorry. It gets a 5. I was thinking he's in my top tier, which I'm thinking 1, but no, for me, he gets a 5. Now, interesting. You said, I forget the exact phrase. He's almost fine. I mean, you had a little bit of a
mostly fine.
Mostly fine. Isn't that Sonny Gray in general, though?
Yeah.
No, seriously. I'm serious. That's
his name too. That's Sonny Gray.
There we go. Exactly.
Mostly.
That's been his MO. Even when he's good, the home runs. There's always something. So I think mostly fine is fine for him because that's sort of is as good as he's going to get. So if he's mostly fine, he's doing all right.
Yeah, mostly sunny. Maybe that's how. Yeah. That's maybe the title of this week's podcast.
Semi-kosher. Yeah.
So Sonny is the 2-star. Vladimir Gutierrez with that spider neck tattoo on his neck. I've been, the first outing I was not that impressed because the wind in Wrigley was blown in. I thought he should have given up a couple of additional homers, but he got his first win yesterday, only 3 Ks. I'm a little skeptical still, but maybe I can't see the forest through the trees. He'll be versus Milwaukee next week. Shane Bieber, looks like they only have 5 games, but they're playing a doubleheader, so we have Bieber lined up for 2, and that'd be a 5 easily. We get that.
Is it a doubleheader or is that a
primary?
That's a primary. But even so, with their injuries, he will probably get 5. If he doesn't get 5, then I'm sorry. If he doesn't get 2 starts, Bassett or Chris Bassett or Sonny Gray could be the lead pitcher this week with 2 starts. But at least temporarily we'll have Bieber up there, which means I'll have to come up with another Bieber pun for the article.
I'll have a name who could challenge for that top spot here in a second, but Antonio Senzatella, he's not going to be challenging for that spot. At Miami, at Cincinnati, 2 road starts away from Coors, but I think I'm going to give him a flat 0, even though last year was pretty good for him. I just can't see any league where I'd feel good about starting him.
I have him in the 1 range, so I'll go with the 1 because I think that there are, I can see injuries in a draft championship league where you still need innings. I can see a scenario where he'd be used.
That guy who I was alluding to, who should be ranked pretty highly, Dylan Cease. Maybe not the top spot, but man, he's been good. And I was dead wrong on him. I thought the command was going to be a work in progress, something that it was going to be tough for him to overcome this year, but he's just been fantastic, man. I mean, I guess the whip's a little high, but the Ks are pretty nice. He's just fine. And I think the whip does kind of hold me back from putting him in the 5 range here versus Toronto at Detroit, but I think he's a 4.
I've got him in the 3, but I want to reinvestigate where I have the initial projection. But I mean, you nailed it. It's the walks leading to the high whip. Sometimes we eyeball ERA and we don't look at the whip. Whip is a really tightly grouped category, so that a poor whip can hurt you more than a poor ERA, just the way that things work out. But yeah, I'll call it a 4 because I think I'll probably lift him into that range.
What about Matthew Boyd next week? He allowed 5, and so he's been on a big downslide. He's given up at least 4 earned runs each of his last 4 starts, so that's a 7.84 ERA over his last 20 2/3 innings. We kind of always knew that, the home runs were going to creep up, and he gave up 3 in his most recent outing. Versus Seattle, though, and then versus the White Sox, I think you were tweeting that the White Sox aren't really killing lefties as much as their reputation may suggest. But versus Seattle is pretty nice. I'm going to give Boyd a 3, but that's about all I can do.
Yeah, I'll go there as well. Yeah, the point I was making with the lefties is even at this point of the year, the sample isn't large enough to make categorical statements that this team crushes lefties, this team can't hit lefties. It's the equivalent of facing around 15 or 16 games, which is a little bit light to make a statement of that nature. You still could have faced a couple of really good lefties or a couple of really bad lefties and skew the numbers. So yeah, and the reason it comes from, I'll be quite honest, I was reading people that are saying things like in DFS, don't use this guy against or not so much in daily leagues, don't use this guy against the White Sox, he's a lefty. Or, you stack the White Sox against a lefty. And there just wasn't enough data. I mean, sure, you can do it, but there wasn't enough data that's a sure thing. That's all. And, of course, then the White Sox went out and had a couple of rough games against lefties. Now, Matt Boyd is a lefty. They could flip it back around again and get the numbers back up against lefties.
Now, for Houston, Framber, Valdez, you mentioned that you kind of want to see a little bit more, and then one of these is at Boston, the second one at Minnesota. So I'm assuming that holds you back from a 5, but is Framber, Valdez a 4 for you?
I can't use innings because he went pretty deep in. Yeah, yes, it's a 4. I'm not going to let my Boston revenge Fenway Park in what I want to have happen cloud what the analyst expects to happen. So yeah, that's going to be a 4, and mainly because he went deep enough into the contest against the Red Sox. Well, first of all, he's pitching really well, but he's capable of throwing 90 to 100 pitches, which is all you need nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. Chris Bubich and Irvin Santana, big Irv back in the big.
Maybe.
I got Irv as a 0, but Bubich I like. He did kind of get knocked around the other night. I guess that was last night. So he gave up 8 hits in just 4 1/3 innings. I do like the kid. He's just not going to be like an ace, and he's just not that dominant. But I like him as a 3. At the Angels, at Oakland, Angels still pretty decimated and ripe for the picking. So I'm going to give Bubich a 3.
I'm going to give it a 3 as well, but I'm guessing my 3 is a tad lower than your 3, but it's still a 3.
And Irvin a 0?
Yeah, and don't be surprised if it's either a bullpen game that he opens or something else happens in the interim.
Now, the Angels still going 6-man, right? So looks like they, with 6 games, will not have one. Tony Gonslin, going to need one more, but that's scheduled for let's see, when is that? Did he make that start already?
He would have made it because we got it for 2 next week.
Yeah, he started yesterday against Sugarland. So he went 3 2/3 innings last night at AAA. Gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 strikeouts against 2 walks, 1 wild pitch. So doesn't look like he's fully stretched out, but it looks like we will see him back.
Yeah,
but it's hard to think he goes. I guess he could maybe go 5, but you just expect. Especially against Pitt, he could go 5. But you think some limitations, but man, these matchups are juicy.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you saw me when you said 3 2/3, kind of go, because yes, that's exactly what went through my head. Was if we can get 5 out of him, he's in the 4 range. Now that I'm looking at the numbers and relating them, I've got to remember that it starts at 5 because I have him as a 4 but I need to check the innings. If I only think he's going to go 4 innings, it reduces the chance of a win. That significantly will knock him down. But we'll say 10. I'm going to say 3. But if you feel the listener feels that he's going to go 5 innings, he could go up a notch.
I'm going to look up real quick on his game log, MILB game log, to see how many pitches he threw. Because innings will tell you one thing, but let me just see if
a lot of times when it's in 2/3, in a minor league rehab, he reached the pitch limit that they wanted him to throw.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, why not let him go a third of an inning, especially if he's pitching well?
Looking at the box score yesterday for Oklahoma City, he threw 60 pitches. So
that was probably his limit, right?
Yeah, that was probably the round number for him. And I got him a 4. I got you down as a 3. I just think these matchups are so good. And at Pitt,
well, they are. But if he only goes, if he goes 4 shutout innings in both,
that's true.
He's still not going to get the win. The ratios help you, the strikeouts help you, which is why he's a 3 for me and not a 1 or 2. But without the chance of the wins, in rotisserie, it hurts you.
I'm going to give him a chance of getting a win in one of these.
All right.
I think maybe if he wins 60. If he wins 60 pitches, maybe he goes 75.
And then 90. Okay, I like your style.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I just think it's possible against these two opponents. But Pablo Lopez, Eliezer Hernandez, we'll have to wait and see. He's got a quad strain, so I would say probably don't.
At least not on the first one, right? At least not on the first one.
So Pablo Lopez, that first one's at Boston as part of that wraparound series, and then versus Atlanta. I still got Pablo Lopez. I'm going to give him a 4. And I guess it's really only something he can't control, wins, that are kind of holding him back.
Yeah, well, I've got him in the low 5 range, but you know what? I'm going to keep him there. I'm gonna keep him in the low 5 range. It may adjust when I do the sheet to the 4 because I haven't added all my inputs into what I'm gonna when I actually do the rankings. And there's a recent how he's pitched recently input, so I don't know exactly how that's going to affect things. But he's in that 4-5 border, so for a 5 for now.
I bumped him up to a 5 too because I gave Gonslin a 4, and if I'm going to give Gonslin a 4, I have to give Pablo
Okay.
Eliezer, again, we'll have to wait and see after he's got this quad strain. I'm going to make a note, very tentative. And I'll probably go like a 3 at best here.
I like the matchups. I'm going to go 4, but with that caveat, if he's hurt at all.
Yeah.
He's a 4, but we need to make sure, and I'll put it in the notes when I do the notes that'll be the note, tentative, left last game with quad or something like that.
Yeah, that's a big question mark. For Milwaukee, no 2-start starters for them. Maybe Eric Lauer coming, or I guess he's back. So I didn't know they were going with a 6-starter, 6-man rotation. That's something I'll have to get clarification on with James here in a bit on XM. But Randy Dobnak, not so good. And another one that I got wrong there. I was buying into that slider he was throwing. Thankfully, I did. He's done minimal damage on my club because I cut him weeks ago. But versus, actually, it seems like over a month ago now on labor. Cut bait pretty quick. He couldn't hurt me too much. Versus the Yankees, versus Houston, man, that's scary. So I'm going to give Dobnak a 2.
And I get him in the 0 range. I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I'm going. Those are, the Yankees can snap out at any time. I'm going to go 0. It may end up being a 1 when I reevaluate, but I'm going to go 0.
I bumped him down to a 1. You're talking sense into me, and I appreciate it. The Mets have only 5 games, so no 2-start starters for them. The Yankees only have 5 games. Kind of
common theme.
A good week for some of these players to get healthier, just rest their ailing bodies a little bit. Chris Bassett, you alluded to earlier, and we talked a little bit about him, like versus Framber Valdez the rest of the season. The guy's just steady Eddie, and talk about a guy whip-wise who's really been consistent with a strong whip. 104 this year, but it's been below 120 the 2 prior years, and just solid. And maybe there's still a little room for growth. But even if this is just who he is, I think he's probably a 5 this week at Arizona.
Well, he's a 5. He's a top 5 in my rankings just because of the 2 starts, both at home. Excellent Ring Central Field. Did I get that? Ring Central Coliseum. And I mean, Arizona and KC. Yeah. It's Ricky. The field itself is Ricky Henderson Field. The naming rights to the venue is Ring Central Coliseum.
I didn't know that and Lone Depot Park are throwing me off.
Well, I get paid to write about them, and I could write 10,000 words. And if I get the park, if I say it's T-Mobile, field instead of park, or which I probably got that backwards, that's the comment. Right, it's nothing about anything right about a player. It's you don't even know what field they play on. How can we trust you? But anyway, in Lone Depot, it's like a small L, and Petco is like they're all capitals because they're like names of companies. But anyway, Bassett, Arizona and KC, they're both neither are terrible offenses, but they're not anything to be worried about either.
JT Brubacher, another tentative one because he's now off the bereavement list, but he's got to clear intake protocols, not starting this weekend.
Correct.
But if he does start early next week, it'd be versus the Dodgers at Milwaukee. Ugh, that's scary. He's been good, and I've enjoyed rostering him so far, but maybe this is one where I just say, thank you for your contributions and time to move on. But I'll give him a 2 right now.
I get him a 3, but again, it might change, but I got him a 3.
Yeah, that one's really a scary 2-stepper there. Nobody for the Padres as far as 2 starts, and same for Seattle. So yeah, really light 2-step week this week. Alex Wood at the Rangers at Washington. That's pretty nice. And Alex Wood's been great. So I guess he's like a relative 5, but I'm going to give him a 4 just to kind of temper things a little bit. But he's among the options this week, among the best, I think.
Yeah, he's another guy whose whip's a bit high lately. I'm going to go 4, and he's kind of, to me, like Rich Hill in that you think older, injury-prone, probably 5 and fly, and they've both been pitching deep into ball games. True,
man. And that Giants team is pretty good, and they got a ton of former Reds in that rotation. It's pretty much all former Reds. Wood, DeSclafani, Gonslin, Cueto. I don't think Casimir was ever a Red. Now Carlos Martinez, you can't use his last name like you would with Gombert. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't flow as well.
But that outing for him was even worse than the infamous Gombert start earlier this week. 10 earned runs earlier.
You think it was C-marted? What if I was? What do you use C-marted instead?
Sorry,
I was C-marted. How about that?
Okay,
that works.
It's okay. It doesn't have quite the same rate.
No, it doesn't.
That was 2/3 of an inning in a 10 spot, so that was even worse. And honestly, versus Cleveland at Chicago, I'm thinking right now, like if I was doing Fab, could I bring myself to even add him to my list after that outing?
Well, the thing about it is, and I'll double check it. He had a really good outing previous to that. So it's one of those. Do you forgive him for one outing? Does he deserve that, or is this a harbinger of more bad things? I still trust the history. I mean, over one really, really poor outing, it's one of those things where. It was the Dodgers who do that to a lot of teams. And what if he was lifted a little bit earlier? It wouldn't look so bad. I mean, he had pitched 6 innings the previous two quality starts in his previous 2 starts. And the start before that was 8 innings and 7 1/3. So yeah, I'm willing to forgive. He had 5 straight starts, 6 straight starts of 6 innings. 5 of them were of the quality variety, 2.82 ERA, 0.94. Now, the strikeouts over that time, he barely struck out. He didn't even strike out 5 an inning. So strikeouts have been down, but I'm not going to cross them off altogether.
That's probably wise because you're right. I mean, that stretch that you were alluding to, that six start stretch before that June 2nd outing,
yeah, but the strikeouts are really low.
Starts. But yeah,
strikeouts are really low.
Strikeouts in that
it was like sometimes when you do regression, it happens slowly. Other times it just boom, and it kind of was a boom for him.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 1 to represent that I'm not just crossing him off entirely, but it's still a 1. Are you giving him more than that?
I'm going to go 3, but it may come out to be a 2 because, like I said, I haven't factored in recent outings yet. That
may be too much recency bias for me, but I can only go 1.
Real quick, there is something to be recent outings. Hitting slumps are not very predictable. They can snap out at any time. But there's research, Patrick Davitt did some research amongst other people that pitchers on a roll tend to stay on a roll. I know it's not forever because otherwise they would get better and better. Eventually they come off of it. But there's evidence to say that someone who's pitching well has a good chance of pitching well the next time too. And kind of the same, if they're not pitching well, there's something to be concerned about. So hitters, when I do these sort of things, I don't really look at recent efforts to judge how they're going to go, but I do factor in recent performance of a pitcher when I look at what he's going to do the next time.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, nobody for the Rays, but I still love McClanahan, so I'm still sticking with him. Nobody for the Rangers either. And then for Toronto, I've been a Robbie Ray hater, and PhD. I'll show off my player hater degree all I want on Robbie Ray because the home run's still a big, big problem. Now he's not compounding those issues, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But 14 homers and 58 innings. I just think it's coming. The regression's coming. So at the White Sox, at Boston, I mean, this could be a brutal two-stepper for him, but I think if you drafted him, you're probably still using him. I'm giving him a 3.
I'm going to go 3. I agree with everything you said. I think that I don't know that so much regression is coming. I think he's giving up runs commensurate with the base. If he for whatever reason keeps control, right? If he keeps exhibiting this ridiculously newfound control, which usually does not come out of nowhere like it has with him. I think he's kind of in line with the rest of his peripherals. The concern would be if he starts to give up more walks, and then the home runs become 2 and 3 run homers.
Yeah, like what he's doing right now is a pretty decent reflection of his skills. But if those walks start ticking up, you're right. Like,
right. There's
no wiggle room.
Right, and you could have a bad BABIP day, right? Give up a couple of leaders. True. And then give up a 3-run homer. So I do think there's some ERA correction coming, but I don't know the xFIP off the top. I can look at it and try to get it, but I think that it's the fact that he's not walking people. That's the biggest. Everybody has to ask themselves: is that real? Is that a fluke? I think we're now beyond the point where it's a fluke. All right, so his xFIP is 3.34. It's actually lower than his ERA, and.
Well, that would regress his home run rate back to the league average or around that, right? So,
yeah,
I don't see the home runs coming down much, but if he's able to just limit the traffic and limit the damage, a bunch of 1-run homers, as Justin Verlander a few years ago,
and he's moving
1-run homers won't kill you.
In theory, on paper anyway, moving to a more favorable park with Salem Field.
True. Now the final one here, John Lester. At Tampa Bay versus San Francisco. Lester's still looking for his first win of the season. Yikes.
Well, he started late. He started a little bit late.
Oh, did he? Did he miss time with? I forget.
I don't recall off the top, but yeah, he's only pitched, I think, 2 or 3 games.
Oh, he was on the COVID list. Okay.
Oh, it was cool. Okay.
I had missed that. Yeah, okay.
He started April 30th. It's been 6 or 7. But
he just was not on my draft radar, really. I'd given up on him a while ago, but and the whip's really high. So I'm actually probably going to give him a 0.
He gets a 0, yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention as far as next week before we review?
Strikeouts.
This is only a 1-pager. You type these into the Google Doc, and usually these run 2, maybe 3 pages. All of next week's 2 starters fit on 1 page. So,
well, this was this past week there were 98 games. This week there are 87. So, that's just the way it works out.
Well, true. So we'll review these grades 0 to 5. Next week's 2-start starters. Drew Smiley, 2. Nick Pivetta, I say 3. Todd, 4. Martin Perez, 2. Adbert Alzolay, 4. Sonny Gray, I say 4. Todd, 5. Shane Bieber, 5. Antonio Senzatella, I say 0. Todd, 1. Dylan Cease, I say 4. Todd, 3. Matthew Boyd, 3. Framber Valdez, 4. Irvin Santana, 0. Chris Bubich, 3. Tony Gonslin, I say 4. Todd, 3. Pablo Lopez, 5. Eliezer Hernandez, a very tentative 3 for me and a tentative 4 for Todd. Be sure to check his updates on his health.
Tentative is the health, right? Exactly.
Yep. Randy Dobnak, I say 1. Todd, 0. Chris Bassett, 5. JT Brubacher, 2. Todd, 3 on Brubacher. Alex Wood, 4. Carlos Martinez, I say 1. Todd, 3. Robbie Ray, 3. John Lester, 0. Todd, anything else on your mind today?
Have good thoughts for my car. You know what? There's so many bad things happening. That was, put your good thoughts elsewhere. We're going to be talking at least once, maybe twice more this weekend. So check our respective Twitter feeds for when Clay and I get together again. Hopefully not talking about more injuries.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, check us out next, I guess tomorrow on MLB Network Radio, and we'll catch you next week on the Rotowire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WinBet.
Try Rotowire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/